Hey guys, over the last week I've been having a lot of fun learning how to play Knight's Edge Soul Eater. So I wanted to take the time today to just review one of the raids that I did and maybe see what we can find that I can improve a lot on. Obviously the class is very new to me, so it was fun to play the Brelshaza raid for the first time, and I thought it'd be cool to just go through like a piece of practical gameplay experience and kind of like find out what I can do to improve my smoothness on the class and see how I can get more comfortable with it. If you guys like this content, make sure to subscribe. Also, this was a recording of my stream, so if you want to watch me live stream and play Lost Ark, sometimes other games, do farming, raiding, that kind of stuff, make sure you go to the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Studiorainy. I stream on all weekdays. All right, let's do it. Soul Eater, Knight's Edge Soul Eater, I think has been a lot more fun than I have expected it to be. And I'm having fun with the 413 Nightmare build. Currently, I'm running full crit. And I think it's on event level 6 gems, so it can be a little bit awkward. I think a lot of people say that low level cooldown gems on 413 Nightmare Soul Eater is not the most comfortable. Now, one thing that I will say right now, I had a really good comment on a video, on the last video that I did on Knight's Edge Soul Eater, talking about the awakening choice. Now, the awakening that I'm using right now is the one that gives you 3 soul crystals, and I don't think it's actually that ideal. I really agree with with what the commentator said. Let me actually pull up their specific comments so I can reference them. Yeah, the comment was on the last video. It was by No Life Warbait, and they said you still run End Awakening on 413 because it does more damage and has a shorter animation. And then the other Awakening doesn't super help. He says he messes up your rotation. I mean, it could. You could just overstack, but yeah. It just isn't as effective because its trade-off is that it gives you the 3 crystals. And I think when I was playing the game, trying to mess around with the rotation and figure out Soul Eater, I think that's pretty much true. I think you should just use the other Awakening, the pink colored one, and I think that's better. So let's keep going. So again, you'll notice that I'm trying to follow the rotation that I covered in the video that I just did, where we're using Guillotine and Reaper Scythe kind of together, and then we're trying to use Vestige when we can. One thing to note is that another good way to organize your head around the rotation when you're doing Knight's Edge Reaper is one of the cycles between your synergy and your harvest is using Soul Drain, which gives you kind of like a full 3 crystals. And then the other cycle is using Lethal Spinning and then your synergy and harvest to give you another 3 crystals. And then I kind of like fill up the difference with Rusted Nail whenever I'm just like a little bit off. That's kind of how I've been running the rotation so far. So in this case, I'm going to try to use Guillotine and Reapers. And then ideally, I can use Vestige. If it hasn't popped me into the trance state, then I'll try to use Vestige to get me there. That's the ideal situation, I feel like. So let's see what happens here. Okay, so it put me into Soul Snatch just by using the Guillotine. And we actually got the back attack on the Lethal Spinning there, so that's super good. Put the fires away. Spacebar to get the super armor. And now we're back into the main rotation. So in terms of doing stagger, I find it pretty easy. I think generally like Lethal Spin is probably your best option to do stagger with. Because now what I would say is Guillotine does a good amount of stagger. Actually, your pink skills in general do a good amount of stagger. And then I think Soul Drain does a good amount as well. And then Lethal Spin does a good amount. I feel like generally, depending on the mechanic that you're doing, you're probably going to want to use Lethal Spin as like the primary thing. Try to use Lethal Spin, try to use Reapers, because your Guillotine, Vestige, and your Harvest have a weak point associated with them. But this isn't super important in this case specifically. But for example, if you're doing like Hanamatan or Kalaligos, right? You're going to want to make sure that you're not staggering too much with all your weak point skills so that you have no weak point when the destruction check comes along. So in my head, as a general rule of thumb, you're gonna want to try to use lethal spin and Reaper Scythe for stagger as just like a general good habit if you can get away with it, because then it gives you the flexibility to use the weak point. But it's just a small thing there. One of the things that I noticed when I was looking at my VODs for raids for Soul Eater is trying to hit the back attack on lethal spinning is really important. Oh man, I can't believe I got trapped there. Rip. It is really important, and the first of the 2 Vestige charges is really your best way to get into the positioning for the back attack and prevent you from having to just like run around wildly, right? So maybe there will be a situation where I can highlight that circumstance right now. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see when it gets up to that point in rotation. Right now it's doing DR and I'm under half. So technically I should use Guillotine, I should use Reapers, or I just use a Vestige here. And then I should try to use my lethal spinning here, but I think it'll be okay. So we're in Soul Snatch, but we're having to deal with the AoE on my feet. A little bit of wasted time there because I'm having brain farts. So another thing, another habit, and it's kind of important to note this, using Soul Drain while you're in your trance state can be really bad, especially when your Soul Drain is about to run out. So don't fall into the trap of just pressing the cooldown just because it's up, because you want to make sure you have it for crystal generation as you come out. Now I'm waiting for Guillotine Reapers. Perfect. Oh, also, controlling the direction that you dash with your Vestige is really important. Some people might have issues with this particular gate because of like going through the boss and then it bounces you out, or like the walls, for example, in this yellow mode. Just know that pointing it to the sides and stuff like that, I think if you play a class like Reaper or something like that, you'll be a little bit more used to these kinds of mechanics. But Vestige, I mean, all your pink skills in Knight's Edge are very good damage, okay? In fact, they are generally the things that contribute most to your damage. So trying to use them effectively and quickly is going to be really important. So here we're going to use a Vestige and go into our state here. And I was really slow on that, right? So I think in general, I think if you're in this situation, you should basically try to use Guillotine Reapers and then try to use Vestige as fast as possible to just push you into the state and then get to using lethal spinning. I think that's the most efficient use of your cooldowns, because really Guillotine is your biggest damage cooldown, right? And getting into... So think of it this way, right? You want to be the most efficient with your Guillotine swing cooldown as possible, okay? So while Guillotine swing is on cooldown, you want to be in your trance state so that you're doing like the additional damage with your ghastly skills, because your biggest damage pink skill is on cooldown anyways, right? So for example, if you went into, let's say we use Guillotine and then we use Reapers and then we waited a while and then we use Vestige and it put us into our trance state, and then Guillotine was available for the whole time we were in trance state, well, now we're drifting our Guillotine swing cooldown by a lot because we can't use it. So for example, all right, I guess it wasn't too long. There's like 10 seconds of cooldown, right? So right now I'm still the most efficient that I can be on my Guillotine swing, right? It's still the most efficient. And actually this kind of worked out because I went into Soul Drain during the phase transition, totally by accident. But because your pink skills are your higher contribution of damage, burning off your trance state in DR periods is probably actually not that bad of a choice. So that might actually be something that you aim to do. The alternative is that you go into DR and then your bar is still at like half or more, and then you only get like one use of whatever your skills are. So Soul Eater as a class probably shouldn't be first in, because I feel like their stagger is pretty okay, but you know, whatever. I think it's generally fine enough that it's not a big deal. So one of the things that I want to continue to mention is using Vestige to reposition for back attacks. So your rotation typically goes Synergy, Soul Drain, Harvest, and then you use Guillotine Reaper, and then you use Vestige, Unenhanced, and Lethal Spinning in the next portion. And at that portion, that's when you can use your Vestige either early to gain your positioning on a back attack to use Lethal Spin, or you can use Lethal Spin if you're already on the back and then use Vestige afterwards. So you see that? You see this here? Actually, this is a perfect example. I'm going to rewind a bit. You see, after I come out, I'm going through that rotation, right? I'm going to use Guillotine Reaper, and the next part of my rotation is Lethal Spinning and then Vestige. But you'll notice that after I do that, I'm standing here on the side, right? I could definitely just Vestige this way, get the unenhanced damage from Vestige that I was going to get anyways, and then I would be in the rear to use Lethal Spinning for the extra crit, extra damage. But instead, I use Lethal Spinning on the side and then Vestige, and that's such a waste, right? Like that's such a waste of an opportunity to use Vestige in an optimal way. But at any point, this is probably an area where the cooldown reduction is awkward without high level cooldown gems, right? I had to wait for my synergy to come back up to do this 3-skill combo. Synergy, Harvest, Soul Drain. And I get my triple crystals, and now I should use Vestige. So again, I should have used Vestige to the rear. If we rewind this, I should have used Vestige to go this way. If I was going to go towards a boss anyways in one of these AoEs, I should have done it to get to the rear. Spacebar to super armor. But now you see I'm just hitting its front with my lethal spinning. Anyway, pretty good uptime. And now we're in the stagger mode for the cube. So in this situation, I don't know if enhanced pink skills do more stagger. My guess is probably not. So it might be better to not go into your trance state, not build crystals, because to my understanding, if you use a pink skill at 3 crystals, if you use it enhanced, it gives you 30% of your gauge. If you use it unenhanced, it's like 10%, something like that, right? So like if you want to cycle more pink skills to do more stagger, then technically you should probably try to use them unenhanced, right? If they're doing the same stagger anyways. Now the other line of thinking is maybe you do want to go into trance because maybe the faster cooldown on things like lethal spinning and your other ghastly skills, maybe that ends up doing more stagger over time. So I don't really know what the specifics of the stagger on Soul Eater are. RIP. We had somebody die to the laser. It's probably my fault, actually. I probably should have tried to be saving them. Okay, so you can use Vestige to go into the safe zone. I did it early and I had to spacebar to super armor. That's not super good. Vestige is such a flexible skill. I think it's a really key skill for practical usage in raids for the Soul Eater. Getting used to having good effect on your Vestige, I think, is really, really important. So here we're nearly at the state. I honestly think as soon as possible, I should use a Vestige. So even right now, right, while it's DR'd, I should try to get myself into this state and then burn this off. Again, I make a mistake. I use Vestige towards the front as opposed to the rear. I don't think that's super ideal. But the uptime is pretty good. Landing that second lethal spinning is about as good as it can hope for in a situation where there's a lot of mechanics that you're trying to uptime, you know? This was convenient because I was already on the rear. I could be channeling my Vestige to come back in right then, but because my brain is slow, I did it slow. But there was really no reason for me to wait. Going side to side with the Vestige on this boss is good. So this was a case, right? Like, if we had the Pink Awakening, so I just used this Awakening and it gave me 3 crystals, but really what was it for, right? It didn't actually do anything to help us. Our pink skills were on cooldown anyways, and we could have spent the time using these cooldowns to do damage anyways, so it's like, the Awakening giving us the 3 crystals didn't do much, so we may as well use the one that's faster and does more damage. So you should definitely be using the Pink Awakening as far as I can tell right now. Also, wondering about the openings for the character anyways, especially if you're using Adrenaline 3. Using a stimulant or starting with your Awakening is, you need to do it for the Nightmare set anyways, but you should be building stacks for your adrenaline anyways. So starting out with your synergy, which helps your team as well, synergy, soldier, and harvest, to help start stacking up your adrenaline stacks. I think it's just good, right? So I feel like most of the time at the start of the fight, you should rusted nail as you're running up to the boss, and then synergy, soldier, and harvest, and then use your double pink skills. I think that's generally what you should be doing to try to stack up your adrenaline as fast as you can. Trying to get some uptime while we're in ghastly mode, but it's dangerous to go in. This mechanic, especially on hard mode, could kill you. So generally, I would say try to respect it, especially at least for the duration for when it puts the AoE under your feet. I would say don't try to go too ham-fisted during that mechanic. Use Rusted Nail to gain the little extra meter. And we're probably gonna Vestige, and then we're gonna do our Soldier Aid rotation to fill out that bar. But I guess we have to do Stagger. So here is inexperience for me in terms of Stagger. I think I should have just done lethal spinning and then the pink skills. That would have been good. But I'll have to continue to mess around and optimize with the Stagger values on the different abilities just to see like what I can get away with, what's effective, what's going to affect my damage the most if I use the abilities in a bad way, Building up the crystals so that when the boss comes out of DR, I'm ready to attack. Now we need to save the guy to our left. Vestige is not the best ability to use in that circumstance, by the way. It's definitely a mistake. Here we can stand to spacebar through or use the paralysis immunity. And just so you guys know, during this mechanic where it's doing its counter, where do we go with that? When it's doing this move, if you stand a little distance away, it gives you a little bit more time to react because the first wave is here, right? And then you can spacebar on reaction, or all you need is paralysis immunity to avoid being pushed away, okay? So it can be a little bit unclear. Push immunity is not actually stopping you from being pushed. Push immunity is the second tier of super armor. It stops you from getting knocked down, okay? That's push immunity. Paralysis immunity is the stuff that's like pushing you, but you're still on your feet, right? So this thing pushes you, but you're still on your feet. So paralysis immunity is enough to stop you from getting pushed away. For example, when I use lethal spinning here, you notice that I don't get pushed back. Okay, burning off the mode. Didn't get the second lethal spinning. It's a little bit awkward, but it's fine. Built up the crystals here. So after we figure this out, I might tap my Q, the lunatic, for the synergy here, and then you want to use your pink skills. Pink, Vestige to the rear and use lethal spinning is what I should have done in this case. Avoid the AoE with the Vestige as well. That's some good timing. And use the charged up Vestige. It does so much damage, man. 22 mil with I think just in general, I think on Night's Edge is like very good for a single ability usage. Got the Soul Snatch. And remember, we want to try to get into Soul Snatch while Guillotine is on cooldown. That's the ideal situation. Oh, did I spacebar out of my Reaper Scythe? Oh, I think I did cancel it, right? So just make note of that. You can't actually cancel your Reaper Scythe. So I use Guillotine. And I press F. There's a guillotine damage. And I'm still in animation for the Reaper Scythe, right? I haven't done my Reaper Scythe. And then you see I spacebar here. And there's no additional damage number. So that's something to be careful of. If you need a spacebar after Reaper Scythe, you probably need some good timing on that. Otherwise, you're going to lose out on the damage of it. So that was probably pretty bad. So we're back into stagger mode here. Spacebar for the super armor. Using the Vestige, just build up Stagger as we can. This is just looking at where the AoEs are. Out, middle, in. And then we finish off the Stagger here. So again, I don't know if it's actually good for me to be building these 3 crystals here, but it's probably okay to get Soul Snatch, because now I'm burning off my meter. Because I made it here, the timing might be pretty good. Right when this thing breaks, I'm able to use maybe my pink skills again pretty quick. Wait for guillotine here. Nice. You use Vestige again, very useful to dodge abilities as well as doing damage. It's a very nice ability. Controlling the movement on Vestige is pretty good. There you go. Oh, I hit level 59 off this raid too. Cool. So that was doing Brel Gate 3. I think overall the things that I'm noticing the most is like optimizing when you go into Soul Snatch is one thing. And then making sure that you're using Vestige to reposition to get rear attacks on lethal spinning is another optimal thing that you can do. Another big question is when you're doing long staggers and stuff like that, should you just be spamming your pink skills without the crystals? Is that better? Or do you want to kind of like maintain some semblance of your rotation so things don't get out of line? These are some of the questions that I would ask. Using Vestige to dodge AoEs while doing damage is super good. You have a lot of paralysis immunity in your kit, so using that really well is super good. And then Reaper's Scythe has the push immunity on it, right? So that's also pretty important. But let me know how you guys have been feeling about bringing your Soul Eaters into raids, and if there are any difficulties that you might have or anything that you thought was like super convenient. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe. And if you want to watch my stream, twitch.tv/Studiorainy. Make sure to tune in. I stream on weekdays. All right, thanks everybody.